Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto, Willies, your host. I hope everybody is here today, ready to listen, ready to not only listen, but ready to open their minds and into a reality that has been denied us from our inception. And that is because we accepted by default, we accepted what they told us, what they said to us an economic system had to be. And I had another subject at hand today, but I got an email from one of our great members of the PDR posse. And, it is something that is hitting everybody very hard. And I said to myself, you know what? To hell with what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to take up this issue because I know this issue very well. It's just a very hard to convince people of the veracity of it and to let them understand why it ain't so. And so we're going to get there. But before that, I want to welcome everybody into the house. Eric Hayes, welcome to Politics Done Right from Atascocita, Kingwood. Paul Fleming, welcome to Politics Done Right from Atlanta, Georgia. Lee Grant, welcome to Politics Done Right from Montgomery County. Of course, we have the Michael Rudden AVQ from Brooklyn, New York. Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. Our beautiful Yvette, our union woman here. Love her to death. So let me see here, folks. We got a great show for you today. All right, let's see what else. Anybody else came in? John Cotter says, hello, PDR posse. John is going to be our star today because John singularly changed the direction of the show today. I wasn't going to talk about this. I had to go ahead and run up and look for one of the definitive articles that I had. It's not a definitive article, it's just an article that sort of explained MMT, modern monetary theory. So that's what we are going to talk about today. But before that, we're going to talk about interest rates as we should. So here's the deal, folks. Here is the deal. You know who understood? Jay Ray, happy Friday, my dear brother Ray from Third Ward. Anybody else new came in? I don't think anybody else new came in. Bridge MCP is in the house. We haven't seen our beautiful Bridge in such a long time, and she has been missed. Bridge, you have been missed. All the posse, even the ones that give you a hard time, they were all looking out for our one and only Bridge MCP. So thank you for coming in today, my dear beautiful lady. Maywood just joined us in the house from Long Beach, California. And we also have E2247 from all over with a language only he understands, and everybody else that speaks it, of course. Anyhow, wow, everybody keeps coming in now. Great. Tom C is in the house from Michigan. See, my brain is still working, guys. My brain is still working. And of course, I said I talk about John Cotter, but I didn't say anything. John Cotter is here from the Kingwood, Atascocita area as well. So welcome everybody into the house. Anyway, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. Let's start. Look, Brother John sent me a note earlier today. And the note said it was a simple note. We're getting screwed by interest rates. Yeah, it's true. We're getting screwed by interest rates. Before we get into that, I hope we're lucky enough that Tom C has a limerick for us to kind of lighten things up sometime today. If he does, I'll be the happiest person on the planet ready to read his limerick. But anyhow, so he sent me this email, and, it is something that I've been speaking about, interest rates being a thuggish way of taking money out of the working class. So what I'm going to do first, there is a piece that I did, and remember, I just read this email from John about quarter of 2 or something like that. And so I'm revamping the entire show for that because I think it is that important that we go off into the weekend with that. So as I'm speaking here, I want to find the piece that I did on interest rates as we speak here, because I think it's a good way to preface what we're going to talk about. So I want to get to interest rates, and bear with me as I search, and hope that I find. And I'm looking. Maybe I have to do a little search here and see if I can find it in some other way. Let's see. Stop raising interest rates and tariffs for a problem created by corporations. Is that the one? I don't know if that is the one, but that may be the one. What date did I do that one in? That was 4/20/2024. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I'm gonna put that in the queue, and I'm gonna do one more search. But bear with me, guys, and forgive me. Like I said, I changed this on the fly. I changed the program on the fly, but I really want to get to it. Let's see, corrected. Bear with me. I'm looking, because I want to make sure that I get the right thing out to you guys. Stop raising interest rates. That's one of them. Let's see the other one. Boeing out response. Rick. Let's see, blueprint. Former treat. Bear with me. I'm looking. I think this may be it. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side. I want to talk a little bit about tariff now that I mentioned the word tariff, because I want to hit up Biden on this as well. You know, right now, China is dumping steel on the American market. That's true. They're selling us subsidized steel. And we are, in order to solve the subsidized steel problem, what we as our American government wants to do is to put a tariff on Chinese steel. Okay, let's stop there for a minute. Our government, in order to stop China from dumping steel on our markets, we want the American people, the victims of this dumping, the average American citizen, to pay a tax to the United States Treasury, just like Trump did, to make the steel from China more expensive to you, so that you would buy American steel. Why is it we are constantly asking the middle class to pay? The inflation was created by corporations, and to solve that problem, we are asking Americans to pay a higher interest rates on credit cards, car loans, home loans, etc. Why? To slow the market down, to convince the corporatocracy to either stop raising their prices, keep their prices steady, and in some cases. So that is what I wanted to say. But I think I have a better video that I did. I think I did this one at KPFT that goes into bit more detail, the real inflation and how to solve. So let's go ahead and play that one. Then I'll come right back into our real-time narrative. Yesterday, the consumer rate, the inflation rate, what we call the greed index, or the corporate greed rate, CGR, came out, and it was 3.5%, and what was expected was 3.4%. And folks, I want you all to listen to me well here. We're going to get to Neil right away, but I need you to listen to me here. This is evil. When I hear the way the 3.5% inflation rate is spoken about on every channel, whether liberals lean in, progressive lean in, right-wing lean in, evil lean in, they all speak about this inflation rate as if it's some inherently magical thing that we don't have control over. I want to set the record straight with all of you, and I beg that you listen, and I beg that you then go do your own research, because you don't have to just listen to my voice. All inflation is the people with pricing power, corporations, even you as a mom and pop shop, etc. When you raise a price of anything, that is called inflation. Remember that. That's all inflation is. You raise the price of something. Why would you raise the price of something? The average mom and pop business many times are forced to raise the price of something because their suppliers, their utilities, all those items go up in price. So mom and pop, like you and me, have very little what's known as pricing power. But you know who has pricing power? The different corporations that control things at their inception, at their beginning. And what are those things that are controlled at the beginning? Oil. We are an oil economy, even as we would like to change that. We are an oil economy. What that means is that barrel of oil that comes out of the ground, the people who have the power to price that. And by the way, taking oil out of the ground in the aggregate, when you add all the barrels of oil that we use in America, and we figure out what the actual price is that corporations use to extract it out of the ground, compared to the price it is sold for, it is huge, the difference. The profit is huge. I don't know. At one time, it was $2 and something cents to bring the average barrel of oil out of the ground. We pay $90 for it. So what does the price of oil do to the price of food? Because food is transported by trucks, when they raise their prices, your food go up, not because the farmers, our brothers and sisters farming the land, our friends are making more money. Okay? They are not making more money. Their cost has increased as well because the tractors they use to field in the fields, the fertilizers they use in the field are based on oil. So when you see people really hitting up oil companies for making things difficult, that is one of the reasons. When you're transporting the food, when you're transporting the equipment to the stores, all those prices go up. Other things that cause price increases, supply chain issues, but most of the supply chain issues that we have were not caused because of some natural issue. It was caused because of decisions that corporations made, going ahead and manufacturing in distant places that are not stable, where it costs. Whenever there's a shock, it costs you and it creates false scarcities. So what do these guys do? Whenever the oil prices fall to a price where their profit margin isn't the same, they cut the supply of oil. Not something that's happening naturally. They decide to create scarcity so that supply and demand comes into play and raise your prices. So this is one aspect. Oil companies and not only oil companies, but others that controls the beginning source of production, they raise prices. Mom and pop and stores and grocery stores and these other people then raise their prices by necessity. But there's another factor here. How do you solve this problem? Right now, if you watch ABC, CBS, MSNBC, CNBC, or whatever, they started to talk about, well, the feds are going to keep your interest rates high until inflation is wiped out or you get it down to 2%. That is the biggest assassination of your personal economy we can speak about. Because what they're saying is these guys that are profiting from inflation, remember what I said, inflation is a voluntary choice of making scarcity, of making things not available so that the price goes up. We have never had a scarcity of oil. Let me just let you guys know that straight up. You can look it up. We never had a scarcity of oil. Even during the pandemic, you could never go to a gas station and not find oil. In the 70s, when we had the oil shock, it was a voluntary choice of an embargo that created that oil shock. We've never had a shortage of oil. But again, the manipulation of these things that they like to call the free market is false. There ain't no free market. There was never a free market. Ask Professor and many others in this domain, Richard Wolff and others. Let's get a bit clearer now. So what the feds are asking us to do is, we, the people of the United States, they're increasing our interest rates so that we cannot buy homes because it's too expensive, buy cars because it's too expensive, spend less money because our credit card rates are too high. So what the feds are asking us to do is, we must give bankers more money because they generally charge higher interest than even the discount rate that the feds are charging. And they blame it, of course, on the feds. But the feds are asking us to slow the economy down instead of telling the corporations to stop raising prices, and that if they raise prices, we have a legal method to take it back, which is called, we create excess profit taxes. And then when we collect those, we throw that right back into the treasury and give back to the people for the unduly use of our economic system by a few to rip us off. So the feds are asking us they don't ask the corporations, please lower your prices. They're asking us to pay the bankers more so that we spend less in the economy. And when we spend less in the economies, then the corporations say, okay, we have maxed out how much we can get from the system and lower prices or keep prices steady. It's a scam. The economic system, as I've been explaining for decades, is a fraud for a few. And I don't take what I'm just saying at face value. Please, brothers and sisters, research how we have been taken year after year after year. Inflation that we're looking at is not your fault. It's not the fault of the mom and pop store that has to raise prices. It's at the genesis of where the economic system begins. And until we understand that and revolt against, and I'm talking about peacefully doing something to stop an economic system that's fraudulently just take as much as it can. When we threw a whole lot of money into the system during the pandemic, you know what that told the corporations? There's a lot of money that is in people's hands, and we can take it. And how do we take it? We raise the price of gasoline because they do have the money to pay a higher price. It wasn't about shortages. It wasn't about not having the supply. And you don't hear that on the news because this has been the economic system since our inception.
We spend a lot of...
I want to explain something to everybody right now because, and I want to tee off of that. When we talk about this has been our economic system forever, that is exactly what I mean. Remember this. During the pandemic, and by the way, brother CSEC is right. What Biden implemented with the way we threw money at the economy was, in fact, MMT. When we go to war when we go ahead and pass $100 billion bill to give all kind of armaments to other countries without paying for it first, that is MMT. Every time we do this spending without printing bonds or just throwing it out there, that is MMT. And as Brother Cheney, former Vice President Cheney, as he said, deficit doesn't matter. And, you know, when Republicans say that, don't complain about it. A Democrat says that, it's like, oh, those spenders. But the real spenders have always been the Republicans, and the neoliberals. Here's the thing. He is right. As long as your economy has room for expansion, meaning as long as everybody who wants a job can go get a job, as long as there is enough oil, no shortages, as long as there's enough food, as long as all those things are there, you can design an economic system where you do not get hyperinflation for printing money into existence. And that is the core of MMT. But before I get there, let's go ahead and talk about the newsletter that Brother John Cotter brought to the fold, and it came from Axios Macro. And the newsletter says as follows: Are you ready for a little Friday rant? Neil delivers one below, and it goes as follows. Invariably, when we write about the cost of borrowing money with terms like super high interest rates or refer to the Fed's historic rate hike campaign, we hear complaints from readers, some polite, some not, who remember when rates were even higher. And I remember in the 80s, you used to buy a house for 12% interest rate. Hey, it's only at 7%, but we got a whole generation that got used to seeing interest rates for home at 3%, which is where it should be, if not cheaper. Okay? So continuing. It's absolutely true that rates were higher throughout the 80s and was a large part of the 70s and the 90s. But in fact, that era was an aberration. And just because rates haven't reached a peak seen doesn't mean they aren't still high by historical standards. What are we saying? After living through 1980s and being ecstatic to get a 7.5% adjustable rate mortgage, I realized that I supposed to run around screaming, but alas, no. A reader wrote to us in a wry email typical of genre responding to an item this week. Over the decade of the 1980s, the average rate on 30-year fixed mortgage was 12.7%, according to the data from Freddie Mac, compared to 7.09 last week and a recent 7.79 in the fall. But the Freddie Mac mortgage, but the 7.79 level was higher than it was in every single week since November 2000. That amounts to a 23-year span in which there have been 5 presidents with all lower rates than the recent highs. The Freddie Mac mortgage rate data only goes back to 71, but it's clear that interest rates were significantly lower than they are now in the era before the great inflation began in the late 1960s. The return on Treasury bills, a measure of bedrock risk-free interest rate, was 5.07% in 2023. It was lower than that in every single year from at least 1928 to 1967. Frequently, it was a lot lower than that. The last decade of the 1950s, for example, risk-free rate was 2%, and its highest rate, 1959, was 3.4%. All right? So therefore, what are we saying here? First of all, that's a fraud. Our banking system is a fraud. Every time we need to make a correction to our banking system, you know who pays? We do. Inflation goes up, we pay with higher interest rates. They decide to give easy credit to people who they know shouldn't get. They encourage people to overspend. Look at what Bridge said. Lowe's on its own gave me $2,000 more in a card. I don't want it, she says. Right when my bank credit card was raising it, which I wanted. Now, if I lower Lowe's, if I lower Lowe's, it goes against me. But if I can't get dog surgery or anything else with a darn Lowe's card, arg, exactly. And the brother also made a comment about when you pay off your cards. Paul Fleming said that, okay, he paid off his student loan, he paid off his card, and his score dropped. Again, the economy is made for bankers to rip you off, right? Interest rates. Every solution is increase in interest rates or encourage you to get into more debt. But we're going to get into MMT in a little bit. So it is important for us to understand some basic principles. We shouldn't have a private central bank as we have today, because that private central bank is simply there to make money for the few. If you doubt it, again, pick up your credit card bill. Pick up your credit card bill. Remember, these private banks borrow money overnight from the federal government at what rate? I think it's now about 5.09%. And they loan it to the average person with a credit card at anywhere from 18 to 28% and sometimes more. Free money for them. Ridiculously high interest rates. And what do they claim? They claim the reason we are charging those very high interest rates on credit cards is because of the default rates of many people who have the credit cards. But what they do is they encourage people to go ahead and get more credit, even credit that they can't afford. And the one thing that they know is even when those people stop paying the bill, they have a lot of people paying their bills on that high interest rates. And then they're going to sell that bill. They sell that bad debt to bottom feeders, the sharks, who then do all kinds of things to force you to pay. Where, they take advantage of those who don't know the law. If you don't pay, we're going to take your house. If you don't pay, we're going to do these things. We can change all of this. We need a completely revamp of our economic system. But pragmatically, we know that we cannot do this in one sweep. We know that we can't do this right away. But what we need to make sure is that people understand that it is, in fact, a fraud. So we discuss about interest rates. We discuss what they do with interest rates. They don't ask the private sector to do the right thing. They don't. They force us to encourage the private sector to do the right thing. And let me tell you what that magical thing is. It's called the sweet point. Anybody who goes to business school, and by the way, there's a time I contemplated going into business school when engineering was very, very tough, until a friend told me, Egberto, if you ever do that, you're going to hate yourself, because you believe in engineering, you believe in hard sciences. You're not going to like business school. Number one, it's going to be easy, which it really is. The business concepts are very easy. It's not complicated. You don't have to do not one differential equation. You don't have to do an integration unless you're going to do certain types of economic modelings. Business is simple. What is money? Money is an abstract item used to exchange one product or service into another product or service. That's all there is to money. And all the complications that come above that was created to allow a parasite to make money. Why do you have money? So that you can buy an airline ticket, so that you can buy a car, so that you can buy a house. But you only know how to do one thing. I'm an engineer. I know how to write programs. I know how to draw certain types of mechanical engineering things. That's my job. I don't know how to bake a bread. Well, I do know how to bake a bread. I don't know how to cook certain things. I don't know how to fix certain cars. But I know John knows how to do that. I don't know how to fly a plane. John knows how to do that. This is John Carter now. He flies planes. So I exchange my money to buy a plane ticket to pay John, who flies planes. John doesn't know how to bake bread. He takes that money that he makes from me buying a ticket and exchange that flying skill into bread. I exchange my programming skill into money so that I can then exchange that money into flying. That's all money is. It's called an abstract form of exchange. It's an abstract form of exchange. Anything sitting on top of it is to make money for parasites. Okay? Now think about this now. That's all money is. Now, how do we create corporations and all these kinds of things? Right? Okay. Corporations used to be things that the state sanctioned to do a particular job. So a lot of people would take their monies, exchange it for something called a stock. And what is a stock? A stock is a piece of that company that will give them a certain dividend for that company to take all that money together and do a job. And after that job is done, the expectation is that corporation, in the past, the expectation is that corporation would be dissolved after the task is complete. the people would make whole on the stocks that they buy in that company and whatever dividends that they would have made throughout that. Again, that's all it is. These are simple tasks. Bankers used to be people who said, you don't want to keep your money in your house where it can burn or where you can lose it or somebody can steal it. So we created banks. Banks provide a service. We go ahead and put our money in a bank, and that bank says, you know what? I'm going to give you a service. You charge a little bit for keeping your money for you. But if you allow me to lend your money out, I'll also pay you a little bit. So it all breaks down. And that bank provided you a service. It safe kept your money. It gave you services that you can do other things. And that is great. And the banker made a profit, a salary. He exchanged, doing a whole lot of stuff with people's money. He exchanged that for cash. And then he himself can go buy bread. He can go buy a car. That's all money is, an exchange of services and products. All these machinations in the stock market about collars and economic collars to protect your investment and buy, all of that is fraud. Legalized gambling, fraud. But that's what we created. We created a sector that is and by the way, I have a lot of folks that I know personally that are a part of the parasitic structure. And yes, this is not a personal vendetta or a personal thing against anybody, but we have to understand that our economy was built on a fraudulent system. John, who has us doing this work today, John does something of value. He flies a plane. He takes you from here to Japan. Brother Rudnin does something of value. He goes to work and do something, and then he gets his money and he exchanges that for doing other things with the money. But the stockbroker out there created a new abstraction to money. And this particular level of abstraction is simply there to make money on money. You know what they talk about when people say, oh, wait a minute, I don't work all that much. I make my money work for me. That's one of the most asinine statements that we have made, including myself, until I analyzed what that statement really meant. It really meant slavery. It really meant that we were making money on the backs of others. And until we accept that we were making money on the backs of others, very few people understand what that means. So here's the deal, folks. Here is the deal. Let's take this a little step further. So it is important for us to understand that we have the working class. And by the way, working class doesn't just mean people making, 50,000, 60,000, 70,000. I'm talking 400,000. I mean, the people that are actually doing a service. That's our working class. We can have working class folks that are millionaires, right? Working class. I'm talking about people who actually work for their money. They have value, they have work, and they actually make this society move forward. There are people that are doing that, which encompass 99% of us. Yet, we depend on these people, that 1% of folks that controls all our markets, to tell us what we're going to pay in taxes, to tell us what we're going to pay in interest and all of that sort of stuff. And then to tell us for the things that we need, the money isn't there. And if we must get it, even though the money isn't there, they will loan us the money if we pay them an interest. So the money isn't there because they're not paying their fair share in taxes. So we give them back their tax money by not having them pay it. Then we borrow the money from them, which they collect risk-free. Risk-free, we pay them for the loan they gave to us. risk-free. And then a lot of these guys are investing all this monies into the stock market as well. And whenever it is time to sell their stock or to pay whatever on their stock, they do what is necessary instead of the companies paying them with dividends, which is taxed at the higher tax level, the tax of a regular income. They get these companies to buy back their stocks so that the value of the stock, the appreciation of the stock is large. So you take the dividends that would have been paid out and instead buy back stocks so that the price goes up, so that when they sell the stock, they pay a lower tax rate. If you don't see the fraud, you're not looking. If you don't see the fraud, you choose to be willfully ignorant. Now, where MMT saves the day is as follows. All every American citizen wants. Every American citizen wants a good life. A life where they can go out there and work. They want a life where they can have their kids go to school. They want a life where their health care is taken care of. And all of these things, our economic system is capable of doing. And we don't need to raise anybody's taxes to do it at all, because it is available for us all. There are enough resources in the system. Well, let me back up. Because of the failure of our economic system for decades, we may have shortages of things like doctors, etc. But things like medicines can be ramped up at no problem whatsoever. But here is where MMT come into play. The theory, it's not a theory because we've been doing it for a long time when we had the wherewithal to do so. What Biden did when he reinflated this economy is he pumped a lot of free money into the system. And everybody got money. Especially the wealthy people. They got most of the money. PPP, they used it. They don't ever intend to pay it back. Most people who got it, the poorer folks, they had to pay back the PPP, but things they don't have to pay back are like the cash bonuses that they gave. That doesn't need to be paid back. But the idea here is that Biden, it started with Trump, but not Trump. It started with the Democrats forcing Trump to go ahead and give the first set of monies fully. Now, and then Biden continued with two more stimuli to the people. That was extraordinarily important, and it proved the perfect thing to do because the economy inflated faster than the economy has ever inflated after a depression. Now, that said, that was the right thing to do, and we proved that MMT works. Now, why did inflation go up, however? Inflation was a choice, as I mentioned in the video earlier. Inflation, I repeat, was a choice. When the oil companies, and in fact, I pointed out a report of what the oil companies did. The guy, and I think what I should do is go ahead and bring up my Substack from this morning, because we covered it this morning on the show. I should go ahead and bring that up, and I'm doing that as we speak. The truth of the matter is there was collusion. Let me go ahead and find that. I need to find that as we speak, and I will find that as we speak, because I just took care of that subject today, this morning, and I'll probably go ahead. Okay, here it goes. Para ver big oils on American. All right. Remember what I said. Oil was there was no shortage. So that more people had more money in their pockets was great. But we should have afforded those people that had more money in their pockets the ability to invest it, to do something else with it, not to raise prices to meet the amount of money they now had. which is what our economic system does. When I tell you that what they do with the interest rates is as follows, here is this curve. I'm not talking about the Laffer curve. Now, the Laffer curve is junk science or junk economics. But there's this curve that says, based on the current economic model that we are in, which is a fraudulent economic model, but this is a formula that works on. There is a sweet spot. You keep raising prices, prices go up as income of your income, the income of the corporation goes up. You keep raising prices. And where those two lines intersect is when the additional price rise starts your product to fall, your income to fall. And that's the sweet spot. Instead, and that's what business people learn in school. If you go to business school, you learn that. There is a sweet spot that you learn. You keep raising your prices until the income that you get from the reduction in amount of people buying the stuff at the higher price falls. And that's your sweet spot. And that's what companies look for. But you know what interest rates do? Interest rates find a way to find that sweet spot for the corporations because they kill the market. They kill the market until people stop buying. And after they kill the market and people start buying, then the corporations say, okay, we've reached that point. Thank you, government. You allowed us to inflate, and you've taken us to the limit. And then it falls. People, you don't have to take my word on this. First of all, it is simple math, like I tell you. Business, supply and demand, all of these things are simple math. It's not differential equations. It is not integration. It is simple math. And not only is it simple math, it is logical. Egberto, describing that raising prices until people stop buying the sweet spot of whatever the market will bear is a horror, as those without the means to buy suffer first, especially if it is necessary. Exactly. So you have the oil companies, you got to buy the oil. And that's why this article was so prescient. And this is what I did on KPFT today. And it goes as follows. Big Oil's Un-American scheme, from ExxonMobil's long-running climate denial to Pioneer's recent price fixing, it is clear this rogue industry business model is deny, deceit, and delay. You know how the oil industry is always saying the U.S. needs to drill more to lower gas prices and protect energy independence? Well, it turns out they've actually been scheming behind the scenes with the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries to do the exact opposite. And if you want an exact one, remember what we did. Saudi Arabia took 2 million barrels of oil off the market, even as the Russian war was going on, which showed you it was a fraud when they said the Russian war would do it. But anyway, it's time for a limerick. I hope you understood that, but we're going to do a little bit more MMT in subsequent shows. But let me go ahead and I'll explain MMT in detail in a few paragraphs after I read the limerick. But our one and only limerick extraordinaire, Tom Zarnik, has a new extended limerick that I'm excited to read. I haven't seen it yet. I just saw new extended limerick. If I make a mistake, forgive me, but I love to read it first shot correctly. Here we go. From Tom Zarnik. Ex-Governor Christy Noem had a dog. It was still just a puppy. She called it Cricket. A better name would be unlucky. The dog wouldn't hunt, so she took it to a pit with gravel filled, shot him in the head with a goat, and 2 horses had him killed. Christy thinks puppy murder shows she has the right stuff, makes her tough enough to be Trump's creepy VP. With the GOP, there's no reason, no rule, it seems. Winners are those who go to most cruel extremes. Even some Republicans agree. Shooting a dog, a horse, or a goat is not the best way to get a vote. Maybe Christie's next pet should be a goldfish or a guppy. Damn, Tom, you did it again. You did it again. Hey, Tom, I hope you put in all of those stuff at politicsdoneright.com. You know you can log in and put that stuff there, man. I haven't had the time to do a whole lot of this stuff. That's a good one, man. We need to frame that baby. That's a real good one, brother. I love it. I love it. I love it and I love it. All right, let me explain MMT in a few paragraphs now. Very important. MMT says the following. MMT says that the United States of America has something known as a sovereign currency. That means we're not like Panama. Panama has something called the Balboa, but we have the Balboa pegged to the dollar. So every Balboa is exactly equal to $1. There are other countries on the world that pegs their money to the dollar. When you peg your money to the dollar or you peg your money to the euro or anything like that, you're pegging yourself to some other dollar. One of the things that means is that you can't devalue your money or inflate your money because it is always pegged to something else. But the dollar is not pegged to anything. We create the dollar. We create the dollar. And we decide what that dollar is going to be worth. And if we have supply of stuff, that dollar can never inflate itself out of existence into hyperinflation. It cannot. But there are some controls that we have to have. And the biggest controls, I'll tell you, is to get rid of the damn banks. And the reason why is because they will institute policies to try to make things in such a manner that we have to control the monetary market. You know, the idea is the following. Government control fiscal policy, that's taxes and spending your money, etc. And then the private sector through the private banks run under the feds control the monetary policy. They decide how much they're going to charge you for interest and all that kind of stuff. And the bottom line they says is it's to maximize employment at the same time keeping inflation down. Forget that. It's to maximize the profits of the banks. That's all you got to say. Nothing more. So now, if you have a sovereign currency, you don't have to worry about taxes or anything like that in the aggregate as long as you have a full supply. So what that means is the following. We could institute single-payer healthcare right now and insure every American citizen. And we can then get every American citizen paid. And people say, wait a minute, you mean there's no more health insurance company? Nope, get rid of them. Well, that means you're going to lose, I don't know, several million people. Yes, that's true. And by the way, the employment of several million people is deflationary. So the inflationary part of paying everybody's bill will be mitigated by losing all those people. The only people suffer on this thing are those plutocrats who are parasites making money off of your illness. That's the only people that get hurt. The people making money off of your illness. Folks, there is so much we can do when we decide that we are not going to be held by an economic system that says, if we give you money or if you make more money, we're going to take it away from you with higher prices. I want you to hear again what I'm saying here. Whenever prices go up, whenever they increase wages, one of the things that corporations love to do is raise prices above and beyond the wages that they increased. It's a big circle. They give you go ahead and you fight the battle and you win a wage increase. And then they increase your prices, claiming that the wage increase required more money. But then you go look at the balance sheet and you go look at the profit and loss statement of these companies, and they're all going through the roof. They're growing and growing and growing on your back. And we accept it. And we accept it because we have good people like Eric and C-Second here who refuse to do the math of how fraudulent the economic system is. And how do you solve that problem? You don't. You can't. You keep moving forward and doing the things that we know we have to do. Those of us here with thinking minds, we have to do something. And that is, in primaries, elect progressives who believe in MMT, who believe, I don't even have to say believe, who understands that MMT is the real way, the real type of economic system. Keynesian economic is but a subset of MMT when you break it down, Keynesian economics compared to modern monetary theory. I don't know if any of those guys would say that in the books, but if you break it down, that is what you'll see. Keynesian economics, MMT. Austerity economics is the fraud, which is what we run right now. Austerity, we always have these spurts of Keynesian and MMT, and then we fall back to a ridiculous case of scarcity economics. So again, if you have sovereign currency, you can print your money, and you print it based on the amount of services and products available within your economy. In other words, the economic system should not stop you from getting services, but you stop hyperinflation by reducing the amount of things you throw into the economy. You balance the economy by ensuring people have education so that every single service that needs to be provided is available. It is not difficult. It is not difficult. It is only difficult when there is a select few trying to be parasites in making monies off of the backs of people. Anybody wants to say a quick something, a 1 minute call, 281-823-7747, 281-823-7747. If somebody wants to just call and say a quick something. Lee Grant says the civil wars on campuses are the result of progressive policies. That don't make any sense, brother, but what can I say? Let's see. And there's no civil war. A report just came out. 100% of all of the protests on campus were actually peaceful. It's amazing. It's amazing. But again, what you saw on TV does not reflect what was actually happening with regards to the peaceful protests in the encampments. But neither here nor there. But anyway, it's time for me to go ahead and ask for your support. Remember, we're very behind. I'll be honest with you. I am so behind it hurts. But we'd like you to support our program, and I'm going to have to come and give some offers later on for my trip to Baltimore for our Netroots 2024. Netroots Nation is not able to support the press and all these guys that they used to support several years. I think they've stopped supporting us for the last 4 or 5 years now, if not a little bit longer. So we all have to raise it on our own. So later on, when we come out, I want to make offers, make you producers of every video that we make and so forth. But we'll talk about that another time. But what we need right now is our steady state support. That is a support, our ongoing support. So I want to ask you guys so kindly to support the program. It's well worth it. As you can see, we do our homework. And not only do we do our homework, but you have a say in what we talk about because it's your show. We are also in fund drive at KPFT. This is my fund drive. That is when I do it there, it's a KPFT fund drive. We, like I explained to folks, there are not many places where you're in control, where you can dictate what happens, where you have the ability to talk back like this vibrant chat that we have right now, where people can communicate appropriately. So let's keep this going. And you can actually help by becoming a part of the PDR Posse. Many different ways to become a part of the PDR Posse. Please go ahead and go to politicsdoneright.com/support. Politicsdoneright.com/support is an all-encompassing set of links with all the different forms in which you can support Politics Done Right. So every way of support, but our preferred way of support are 3 basically. 1, become a patron. How do you become a patron? Going to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. That's spelled Patreon. The other form is going and get some of our books. And by the way, all the books now have audio books with them. I finished my last audio book on Tribulation of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man. I just finished that audio book, so that is out there as well. Guess what? So the other way, so go ahead to go to politicsdoneright.com/books to get any one of my books, audiobook, Kindle, any one of the formats. What I'd love is as well for folks to go ahead and become subscribers. Oh, wait, I didn't put the books in there. Let me put the links for the books in there. You can get our books at politicsdoneright.com/books. The other way to support us is to become paid supporters of our newsletter. If I could get our paid supporters to our newsletter over 1,000, I'm only at like 79 people right now or something like that. Thank you, John. You have a great weekend, my brother. Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter to become a paid subscriber. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. All paid subscribers get to read all of my books. So this is not like, me not giving back something. All paid subscribers get to read all 5 of my books at my Substack. But not only that, you don't have to buy the books. You can read all the books there. But number 2, all subsequent books that I write, and I have 3 of them that I'm working on right now. Not all of them are in different stages, of course. You get to read all my subsequent books free of charge for being a subscriber to either Patreon, being a patron, or going to our newsletter. Well, it is 4:00 and I got to get out of here. I want to thank John Cotter for being the lead today. He's the one who catalyzed what we spoke about today. And many of you have been the ones who have led a subject before. You've said, hey, Egberto, we need to talk about this. And I pick it up and I'm like, damn, you're right. We need to talk about this. Thank you, John. You got me a chance to talk about interest rates and sort of tie it into MMT, which is something we need to talk about. I need to get Stephanie Kelton out here to talk about it. Anyway, got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.